Go. Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in and joining us for these conversations this afternoon. Folks, let's talk about it. President Biden addressed the nation last night, not about economics, not about public health, but he addressed it about the great division, what he says is the big attack on democracy, isolating MAGA Republicans. We'll talk about what were some of the big takeaways. Plus, I would love to hear what you have to say and what you think the president has said about the GOP. We'll have that conversation. Also, there is a new rule that allows college athletes to finally get paid. The question is this going to be a good thing or a big slippery slope? We'll be talking a little bit about what the NCAA's ruling means to Black college athletes. We'll have that conversation. And then later on, folks, can we talk about what's happening with quiet quitting? How now, after quiet quitting, here comes quiet firing. Yep. When employers don't always tell you exactly why they are letting you go, just know you got to go. We'll have that conversation and a whole lot more on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Stay with us. All right, folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm so happy you are able to join us this afternoon. Happy Friday. And this is a good Friday because guess what, folks? It's a 3-day weekend, Labor Day this weekend. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of great conversations for you this afternoon. But before we get into those discussions, let's talk about the fact that we need your support. Make sure you show your support to blackstarnetwork.com as we are on our drive to get as many of you to support the great work that we are striving to do here at Black Star Network. You're all Black network, your medium for information about news and entertainment and culture, all of that and a whole lot more. Make sure y'all check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure you give and, of course, continue to support the work that we're doing. All right, folks, I'm very, very happy and excited about today's show because guess what? We're talking about all the things that you've been wanting to talk about. So, of course, just get ready because no conversation is complete without you. And big shout out to our online culture crew. Man, oh man, I always love checking in with so many of you. And if you are a new watcher, don't worry, the culture crew will welcome you. Even if you don't always agree, that's all right. But guess what? You are at home to express yourself. All you have to do is just be respectful, but you can certainly express yourself and we'll allow you to say what you need to say because this is all about the culture, not just your culture, my culture, but the culture. So big shout out to all of our online watchers, our new online watchers. All right, first and foremost, let's talk about the big moment from President Biden yesterday, where he stood before the American people in a primetime address out of the great city of Philadelphia to address the country about what he sees as being the very attack on democracy coming in the form of MAGA Republicans. Not all Republicans. Let me just be clear, because some folks say, oh, the president is slamming all Republicans. No, he's calling them MAGA Republicans, a distinction that needs to be made. And as a result of his standing before the American people to talk about this great attack, he has simply said, look, we have to stand to protect democracy. We have to stand for it. We have to make sure that it is defended, and that this is what makes America really great. Our ability to make decisions, to choose, to give, to empower the citizens. What makes America really great is our ability to govern the way we govern. We have to stand for democracy. And he essentially made the point that MAGA Republicans are trying to take the country, not just quote unquote back, but backwards. Yes, rolling back on a lot of the new policies and pushing back on some of the big cultural topics that we are seeing that folks are having right now. So let's jump into the conversation. We're talking about the big takeaways. I want you to post your comments in our YouTube page, our Facebook page. Let us know, what did you think of President Biden's address? If you had a chance to watch it, to check it out, what did you think? Do you think that it is an address that needed to be made right now? That's the big question. Do you feel like this address needed to be made right now? Because guess what? Some analysts and some other political folks are saying, I understand, Mr. President, but now, why have this address right now? I want to get your take on that. And I want to bring in Culture Crew Bakari Jones, who is a strategist. She's an activist. She's a social entrepreneur, and she's a nonprofit leader working in many, many different places and spaces. We want to welcome her back to the culture. It's always good to check in with my sister. Bakari, how are you, sis?
Come on, brother. Thank you for having me back, Farajii. It's always a pleasure, man.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. All right, so it's a good day. It's a good day to be back too, Bakari, because your president.
Man, it's my president. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Your president, he decided to throw the gauntlet down. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna draw the line in the sand. Y'all didn't think that I was strong enough, but I'm gonna bring that. I'm gonna bring that fire. What do you make of the president having such a powerful message with the symbolic city of Philadelphia behind him, with all of this that is happening in this country? Culturally, and I would say that this conversation is really more cultural and ideological than anything, right? But what do you make of this? The president making such a major address, primetime address, just 9 weeks before the midterm elections?
You know, Farajii, I think it's exciting. That's exciting is relative, I think, in a political space. But I think what we've been talking about all year has been this sort of desire that we've had for the Democratic Party to take a more proactive stance in so many different areas, right? I can't think of how many, episodes and instances we've talked about Democrats being responsive or reactive to something as opposed to being proactive. So to me, I think that this is an instance where I do think, your president is taking this as an opportunity. I think be a little bit more progressive, and I think, show that he's willing to be not necessarily daring, but I do, like you said, to kind of draw a line in the sand, right? To take a firm stance on something. And he used, I like looking at the language. So listening to some of the words that he said, the semi-fascist, like, to me, those are words that I hope really get folks charged up. You know what I mean? And
it's got some folks charged up.
There's always the Republican spin on things, but I hope that this is enough to kind of spark a different level of not necessarily motivation, but a desire, a greater sense of like willingness and a greater desire to be more active in the midterm. So those are my thoughts, man. I think.
Do you feel like? What was, the language was really colorful. Like you mentioned, he talked about semi-fascist. He talked about, how they're taking the country, they're trying to take the country backwards. He's talking about attack. It's very, very like emotionally charged language, right?
Yes.
You throw the fascist thing out there, now I think you got a lot of people's attention, right? Because we just don't hear about that form of, I mean, we've been saying it, folks have been saying it about Trump, but when it comes out of the mouth of the president of the United States about a segment of his, of another political party, it just hits different. You know what I mean? It just hits different. And I was reading what some folks were saying on social media, and some folks were like, he needed to say that. Other Republicans are like, well, we're not fascists. And some Republicans went as even far as saying, hey, why he calling out all Republicans? Like, listen, dumbass, he's not calling out all Republicans.
He made a point to say MAGA Republican, right? He tried to make that distinction, but I don't know that you can really, I don't know when you're on the opposition if you can really hear that level of nuance, right? I'm
gonna take a line like Don Lemon said on CNN.
Go.
Do y'all hear differently? Because it's like, does your ears work differently? Because he's not saying it, but it is charged. Here's my thing. Well, first let me get your take on this, and then we get to our watchers. The timing. How important or how much of a significance does the timing of this message play for you? Like, going into this election and in the fact of everything that's been happening, do you think that this was the right time for the president to make this type of speech?
I mean, I think sooner rather than later. Like, ultimately, really, if the opportunity is to say it now, as opposed to waiting another 4 weeks, I think go ahead and say it now, right? Again, for me, it just really boils down to the opportunity to be more proactive as opposed to reactive. So even in terms of how it lands, I think that so many, Farajii, I feel like we have literally just talked about this again and again, just the opportunity to be in a more controlling position, right? To take more of the lead, right? As opposed to respond. And really, he's responding to a lot of the things that the Republicans have already done and said. Yeah. So even to that extent, it's really not necessarily that proactive in the first place. But I think for him to take this stance now, I feel like it's to me, it's beneficial. I don't necessarily see the cons, so to speak, of him making this statement now. I think the sooner you start to get folks engaged and charge up, and I don't necessarily think that, it doesn't seem like anyone on the Democratic side has the perspective that, oh, we got it in the bag. So I think him kind of blowing the whistle and kind of signaling this early, I hope is an instance and a signal for folks to get on board with him time wise.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to some of our watchers and folks. Post your comments as we have this discussion. Damon, my guy Damon, checking in, always a loyal watcher of the culture here on the Black Star Network and RMU. Damon, you said, look, I watched this speech this morning. Like I said yesterday, this should have been done in 2021 after the election. Here's my only thing about the timing issue, or the timing piece, Bakari and Damon. Like, looking at where President Trump is, what's all that is happening, particularly with President Trump, and seeing the response that some Republicans have about FBI. And this is part of the reason I think President Biden decided to move forward with giving his speech. When you start talking about the FBI and other law enforcement agencies, the Department of Justice, you know what I'm saying? Now the talk, especially, now we're not even privy to all of the talk, right? Because we're at this level of things. But the talk is so charged up to the point where Steve Bannon and other folks are putting out FBI agents' personal information and names of those who went to Mar-a-Lago. They're trying to identify any FBI agents who are conducting these investigations. That's a problem. And I'm not talking about just a small problem. I'm talking about a national security issue.
Yep.
Which is why when people say the timing of it, I don't give a damn about an election. But when you start to think about how far a person would go
Mm-hmm.
Now, these political leaders, they could talk all they want, but guess what? Which I don't understand, Bakari. You're gaining from these guys securing you and your family each and every day.
Mm.
Right? You're gaining from the fact that, for example, with the Department of Justice and all that, they could open up investigations on you for all the dirty work you've done. You know what I'm saying? But to the talk around those agencies in particular has become so heightened, where people want to hurt, do harm, and not just to the individuals, but to the buildings. The talk around the classified documents, knowing Trump is dead wrong, like 2 left feet. Y'all going on to defend him.
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy's a Republican leader. Y'all go on to defend him to the point where there's something had to be said, because now it's getting to be so emotionally charged that it possibly, and I'm not joking in saying this, folks, it possibly can lead to some sort of rebellion or revolt or some sort of resistance. And you got to nip that thing in the bud. And Damon, I know you said this should have been said 2021. You're right. But now it's taking on a whole different persona, Bakari. What would you say to that?
You know, so I love public speaking, and I think for him to you use the word colorful, which I think is perfect, right? For him to use such colorful language, it's so unfortunate to consider us devolving and stooping down to the level of what really is emotionality, which really is fear mongering that the Republicans are using that a select number of Republicans are using to mobilize the Republican Party for their interests. But I think if we don't acknowledge that level of gameplay and figure out an approach that actually has the chance to beat it, then I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. So to me, if this is a step in the direction of being more passionate and emboldened, then I think that's the direction to go in. I mean,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So I do understand what your perspective. It's tough.
Like, here's the double thing. All of this, right, undermines any sort of legislative progress. Like, if you have people in your Congress, right, in the Congress, whether it's the House or the Senate, who really, you're trying to push policy. I know people that hey, the president should talk about, like, Jackson, Mississippi, what's going on down there. And I want to, Tony Appleby, you checked in, brother. You said wrong timing. I wish he talked about Jackson, Mississippi water issues, gas, food, energy prices, crime, teachers and school issues. Honestly, he looked like an old, angry man. Talk about his accomplishment. And I get you. Some people say he should have talked about Roe v. Wade and abortion rights. But this is a fundamental cancer. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't even talk about all of the policy stuff if a joker really thinks that at the end of the day, you being in office is illegitimate, or they allow lawlessness to happen. You know what I'm saying? Or they see, or they think a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, we want to move on to policy. And I will say on record that I credit the president for, like, saying, okay, we can't move forward because this thing is growing so fast. The dissatisfaction, particularly among white males within the GOP, their dissatisfaction is growing so fast each and every day because of lies and because of misinformation, that it's hard to move forward on these policy issues. Why talk about Jackson when at the end of the day, Republicans ain't gonna move on Jackson, man. Jackson's is in a Republican-controlled state. So if he keep pounding the pavement talking about Jackson water issues, right? How much ground you think you're gonna? The problem is they don't even care.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, they don't care. You can talk about teacher issues, right? Again, you're dealing with a party that's not even operating from a space of logic or truth. I feel like I just feel like, at some point you're going to have to hit a dude in his face to let him know I ain't playing no more.
And that's I think that this, so if this speech is from President Biden's perspective, his sort of signaling, look, we don't got time to play, and that's kind of what, to me, the sort of general direction that his speech is going in, right? Just acknowledging that they're not, I don't want to say not necessarily fighting fair, right? We already know that about the Republicans. We know they're going to put their spin on all of these different, on everything that he says, right? All the different perspectives, right? Even folks lumping all Republicans in, even though he made this distinction to this one particular subgroup of Republicans. But I think if it's an indication that he's acknowledging the effort that is going to take in the fall, that's to me what the takeaway is, right? I think the timing of it, to me, signals that he acknowledges that everybody's gonna have to be engaged. So to me, I hope that this is really just like the springboard to a much more comprehensive sort of ramp up that we're gonna see as we go into the fall.
I mean, I think that the other part about it is that a lot of Democrats, and you don't have to, depending on where you are with your Democratic inclination, right? Your Democratic leaning, whether you're moderate or you are all in liberal, fully liberal. We were waiting. You know what I'm saying? It's like, when you going to address it? Tiana, you said it best. He had to address at some point, he had to address the elephant in the room. And people always, and here's the thing, like, here's what I often see in American politics when big issues happen. There's always this call for people to hold on, wait, just wait. We got this coming up. Wait. Not right now. It's like, the system is falling apart at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Either you address the elephant in the room, like Tiana said, or you're going to keep waiting, and wishing upon a star. And how many times, let's keep it real, y'all, how many times that many of us say, damn, when are the Democrats going to push back on this shit, man? When are they going to hit hard? Because the Republicans hit hard. Trump hit hard. And so when the president, this older white male president, decides to hit back, now everybody's like, oh man, he shouldn't have hit. When Trump, and I'm gonna say, Don Lemon said this on CNN the other night, man. He said Trump talks about everybody, even people in his own party, and no one said, and we just accept it. Mm-hmm. We be like, that's Trump. That's how he rolls. That's what he do. When are you going? And look, when are the Democrats going to hit back? The Democrats got to hit back, man. That's how I feel in Bakari. The Democrats got to hit back. You got to let them know, like, look, son. I read a piece as we wrap up this part of the discussion. I read a piece just a couple of days ago, and this is when I was like, oh boy, Biden is on his new. Mm. He said, leading up to this message, he said, for those of you who think that your little gun is going to do something to the United States of America, you are sadly mistaken. He said, you're going up, Bakari blew me away. He said, you're going up against a whole country. You better bring an F-15 or something. Because we're the United States of America. And in that one little part of the quote, Bakari, I was like, there you go. Essentially, he was saying, we will crush you. Don't think twice. Like, I'm not like these other guys. We will crush. I will use the authority and the weight of my office. I will crush you. I was like, damn. I've never heard the president say that. I never heard it coming with that tone. Mm-hmm. But you gotta cut you gotta go, because this is a cancer. I'm gonna keep saying this, folks. It's a cancer that needs to be cut out. You got to get to the root of it, man. And the sad part, and my great concern, people are expecting, like, what kind of pushback will the president get from yesterday's message? My great concern is that it could lead to a very real situation of war, a civil disorder. It could lead to that. Because if you look at the history of of like militia groups, it's not just about races and the LGBTQ community and all of that. They got a problem with government. They got a problem with government. And a lot of these militias and a lot of these little groups, and there are thousands of them across the country. The FBI is keeping a watch on them. There are thousands of them across the country, and they have actually grown since Trump got into office and got out of office. They have a problem with government. So we really do have to address this part. Like the president is privy to what's going on in those spaces and on the underground and the dark networks, what they saying on some of these conservative sites and all of those places. Like, they have a problem with government. And if he sees it, one thing I don't get past by, I don't think he's a stupid man. I don't think he's a stupid man. You know what I'm saying? We can talk about the politics of something when here and there, but he's been doing this thing for a long time. Yeah. On many different ways, many committees and all of that. He understands the writing might be on the wall. I'm going to have to deal with this. You know what I'm saying? He going to have to deal with it. Because you got the final word. What's your take?
Hope that it signals, I think to your point, Farajii, I hope it signals a level of urgency that the president has recognizes is necessary for the Democratic Party to take moving into the fall. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That is it. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. We're going to continue to look at this situation as it play out, because I truly believe that this was a message. This was, like I said, a drawing a line in the sand, and there's going to be some pushback. There's going to be a response. Kevin McCarthy gave his response last night, trying to go point by point against President Biden, talking about the Democrats and their failed policies and all of those things. But there's a cultural, there's an emerging sentiment culturally that this government is not working. And we will have to see. We all have to keep our eyes open. Let's not fall asleep at this moment. We have to keep our eyes open. We have to recognize that this country is going under a great, great transformation from the inside. The worst enemy is not the one on the outside of you. It's the one within. That's the worst enemy. And so we're going to keep our eyes on this situation. Look, we got to take a quick pause as we move forward. Let's talk about the NCAA ruling of allowing college athletes to finally benefit from their image and likeness. And what does that mean? Does it open the door for them to get their just due, or is it a slippery slope when you got young millionaires in colleges? Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. We wanted to switch gears because there was a major decision that was made about college athletes and their ability to gain benefit from their likeness and their imagery. This was a decision that was made by the NCAA. Now, I wanted to also have a deeper conversation about this, because this opens the door where college athletes can make millions. Now, we already know that there was a huge discussion about, it not being fair that college athletes are playing in these Division I programs, and they are basically used as a branding purposes to help bring millions of dollars to the schools that they play for. Now, with this new ruling, it opens the door for them to get individually paid. But I'm wondering, is this good? Is this good for young people to get money so quick and so fast? Is this good for the sports that these young athletes are playing? How does this affect Black athletes? How does this affect the future of sports? A lot of questions are still looming over this decision. So we are going to have this conversation with Culture crew member Bakari Jones, and also we have our special guest, Scotty, who is a YouTuber and podcaster and host of Off Script TV. And we're so happy he's able to join us today for this part of the discussion. Scotty, thank you so much, brother, for checking in. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. Thank you so much for being a part of the discussion here. Scotty, let me get your take on this. With this new ruling from the NCAA, and it really does put a spotlight on basically athletes having the autonomy over their own images and their likeness and getting some gain from it, benefiting from it. There has always been talk about these athletes putting their minds, their bodies, their likenesses out there, but didn't get anything from it. This is going to change. Is this a good change, or is this a change that we need to be very concerned about?
Oh, it's a great change. I mean, in the time of the day of everybody's branding and everybody having their own brand with social media, Twitter, Instagram, it's a great thing, because I tell anybody who watches the show, I'm like, there is no USC without Reggie Bush. There is no Alabama without Bryce Young. There's no Florida without Tim Tebow. So these athletes are actually ambassadors of the school, which entice other people to come to the school. So yes, they're bringing money to you in athletics, but now your enrollment has jumped up. The excitement, the ticket sales have jumped up, the merchandising has jumped up, and these kids who are bringing these people to your institution should not take a part of this. When you're making billions, not just millions, you're making billions of dollars off these kids. They shouldn't get any money back for them putting their body, their health on the line, all because they got a 4-year degree. No, I'm sorry for that one.
Sorry for that one. All right, let me share with you with a little bit more of the details of this. Here's what the griot said about this idea, about this ruling. Check this out, folks. When they said that more than a year ago, and they said the NCAA lifted longstanding restrictions on players profiting from their celebrity status. And in some cases, it turned elite players such as Stroud and Alabama quarterback Bryce Young into instant millionaires. But the financial benefits for some athletes are being weighed against the possibility that such deals will divide locker rooms, create tension within programs, produce an uneven playing field across college athletics, and overwhelm students stretched for time. Are these, and Scotty, when we're looking at all of those issues, when you're talking about, you know, if your quarterback is getting millions and you still not getting that much money, the division that possibly can happen within a locker room, how does that get reconciled?
It's, if you've been in a locker room, you know, the division comes where you get a player like you, like, why is he getting paid? Like, that's the division. When you see a guy that you know is not good, you're like, how is he making that much money? But when you got a guy like somebody who can play, you're like, oh yeah, get all your money. Oh yeah, because you know what I'm saying, you're the reason we win it. So I think there's the level of difference. But see, what people, they like to go to the tip of the iceberg. But what people really need to see is, what about the kids that go to HBCUs that have to get a summertime job to fund school? You know, now they're allowed to use their image and likeness to get a deal with a local car dealership. Now they're allowed to go with a local restaurant and get $1,500, $2,000. See, a lot of people go at the top and they're like, oh my God, these kids are making millions. Well, the school is making billions. So, I mean, that's a fraction, you know, but when you start disseminating it down and you go to different lower levels, these NIL deals are actually helping kids pay for their school, you know, maybe give money back to their family, just little things, car payments. So it's those players that really benefit to allow to go shop their likeness and get what their worth is.
Do you think it's a slippery slope though? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you got college millionaires pretty much, right, walking around on campus. I mean, if everybody knows, I mean, that you bringing in money, like in the article in the griot, they talked about, I think it was Stroud. Stroud is driving around in like different cars every week. You know what I mean? He flashy as hell. You know what I'm saying? Like, and for grown men, we just like, oh boy, that's this young boy ego, right? But if you're a young man on college where you don't have, you know, it opens up the door for some level of hatred. You know, you start to feel like, damn, man, like, yo, coming to class, he playing football, I'm studying my ass off, my parents ain't got, you know what I mean? I may not be football player. I might be majoring in chemistry. I might be majoring in something else. Mm-hmm. Like, does it create do more harm than good culturally for Black students in particular?
Listen, man, come on, bro. Let's be real. It's the Black Star Network, right? So let's
keep it 100,
right? Black people hate on other Blacks for Jordans. Like, I've seen people hate for less. So I'm from Maryland. You get a nice North Face or a Spider jacket, Bama's hating. You know what I'm saying? So let's not act like it don't take millions for somebody to hate. It just has to have hatred in their heart because they envy what you have. So it could be that you got a good job. You could get, you know, somebody could come for you and say, yo, we want you on ESPN, Muhammad, and you and there's somebody hating on you. You know what I'm saying? You ain't making, you know, millions, but you know, you're making pretty good money. It don't take the hate on anybody. So to just keep isolated on the hatred issue, it doesn't take much. For me, it's like, you're going to have the onesies and twosies that make millions, you know what I'm saying? But think about college athletes as a whole. See, people like to isolate in small incidences, like, oh, yeah, this kid's making $1 million. There's like 2 million college athletes. You know what I'm saying? And you got 6 making $1 million. Like, come on, man. Like, what about all the other players who are getting $10,000, $20,000, $30,000? You know what I'm saying? Because think about it. If you were a chemistry major and you came up with something that was brilliant, you can monetize it. If you were a kid in college and you created a invention while you're in college, you can monetize it. Facebook started in his dorm room, made it to a multi-billion-dollar. He monetized. Like, so just because I'm not, that's not my lane. I'm not like, I'm not making gadgets or IT or apps. This is my gift. God has given me this gift to play football. Somebody sees the value in it. It makes the school money. It's making me money. So I really don't see anything.
I hear you. Bakari, I want to bring you into the discussion. What's your take on this?
One, Scotty, nice to meet you. I'm glad that you're here chiming in. Sports is not my ministry, but to me, I think just statistically speaking alone, just off the stats, knowing the overwhelming majority of college athletes are not going to go pro, I think there's an opportunity for them to get some money. And to Scotty's point, it's the average player is not going to get to that million, right? They're not necessarily going to hit $1 million, and maybe not while they're in undergrad. But if they could get something, right? If they can get something that offsets a summer job, if they can get something that offsets any of the financial burden associated with attending college, especially if their involvement in the team sport is not completely covering their tuition, then to me, I think the pros outweigh the cons in that instance, right? And I think to the Griot's point about the locker room dynamics, I feel like that. I don't know how that would really be any different in the professional leagues. Like, I don't know how that would be anything different, right? It's going to be based on the agent. It's going to be based on your individual performance.
Oh,
so
that's
I can understand like the way that could impact a team dynamic and camaraderie, but I think the hope would be that, and maybe, I don't know, maybe that's too capitalistic of a perspective, but I think the hope would be that if you see a team member who is performing at this level and has been incentivized as a result of performing at that level, hopefully it makes you want to, perform at that same level as well.
Right. And I mean, I get that point. I definitely, and I think that you made two solid points, Bakari. I think one is, when you're talking about this is the culture you're going to have to go to if you decide to pursue sports on a professional level, right? Once you get out of school. So you will have to deal with that, that you might be standing next to a dude that has $230 million coming to him while you get 20 or 30, right?
Right.
But then I think to the other part of it is, my concern is that how do we make sure that these students, these young brothers, these young sisters in particular, that they handle themselves? Because a lot of these students don't come from money, especially when you're talking about Black players, right? They don't come from money. And does this, by them saying, okay, we're going to give college students money for playing, does this create a culture within the next generation of young Black athletes like, yo, I'm going to go to school to get to college so I can get money. Yeah. And the goal is only money, not necessarily to go to school because of academics. And I'm just throwing it out there, Scotty. I'm just throwing it out there.
I mean, people go to college to get money. Like, let's call it a buck. Like,
wait a minute, Scotty. People go to college to lose money.
Yeah, they're calling it an investment on themselves. You know what I'm saying? So the lawyers, the doctors, they're investing in themselves to later down the line recoup all my money back. You know what I'm saying? But I agree with Bakari. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's no different if I walked into a job place, you know what I'm saying? And me and this person are in the same position, but I find out you're making more than me. That's why, job places don't want you to talk about your salary. So people like to think about athletics outside of a professional workplace. But to me, I look at it the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you wouldn't want, I think you got to I think what's going to start coming down the pipe and what's going to make everybody competitive is like the Big Ten. They just signed a 7-year, $7 billion deal. But their incentivizing is that we want everybody to get paid. So if you're a scholarship athlete, you hit a minimum standard. So it could be like $15,000. So if you're on scholarship, you automatically get an NIL from the Big Ten of $15K. And then based off your individual performance, then it incentivizes you even more. So, I mean, that's a play. I mean, because these conferences are making millions off these athletes, and people don't understand, okay, if I play college football for 3 years and I blow my knee out or I bust my shoulder up, and I have permanent damage, what that degree is not going to give me insurance. That degree is not going to pay for my health care. So it's overall, it's the overall arcing of the whole problem.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to some of our watchers. Our online culture crew folks are checking in. Nisa, 1971. Nisa, what's happening, sis? You say, look, I can see how it could become problematic if they waste the money on frivolous things, but they deserve to be compensated for their talent. Too long, the schools have made money on the backs of Black people. Facts. I can see that. Yeah, it's keeping the egos intact. My other concern on that too, Nisa and Scotty and Bakari, is making sure, like, along with this change, Scotty, have you heard about any financial literacy courses that these students will be able to get? Will they be empowered on how to handle that money if they're eligible for it?
I think for the Power 5 and the high level FBS programs, I think they're going to automatically walk into that lane of financial literacy. Because listen, at the end of the day, you don't want that to fall back on the institution. Well, we gave this kid $2 million and now he's on the side of a bridge, you know, and like, you don't want that to fall back on your institution. So you're going to do your due diligence. What happens is the limited resource institutions, and we already know what I'm talking about, the HBCU community and the lower level institutions who don't have the resources to be like, oh, we're going to give you, three financial literacy courses or send you to class and those things. So now you're dealing with kids who have a rush of money. I remember when I joined the military, they gave me a $10,000 bonus. I was like 20 years old. I thought I was balling. You know what I'm saying? So it's those type of influxes of money that you're just like, oh man, like this is a lot of money. But it didn't matter. To me, it didn't matter if you went to Google and Google gave you a signing bonus of $6,000. It's gonna be 22 and 23 year olds that blow through that. You know what I'm saying? Right. So the financial literacy of it, I think, is what's going to have to be the standard put in place of NIL deals, understanding that you have to pay taxes, understanding, what tax bracket you fall into now because you make such and such amount of money and things like that, that you lose financial aid because of the money you're making. Like, all those processes go into place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good point. Brother King Lee, my guy, you said, look, I think it's good because it is good for college athletes to get paid because it will help with increasing generational wealth for our Black athletes.
Come on, that's a bar.
I can see that. And that's why I brought up the financial literacy piece. Like, the generational wealth, there could be great benefits in that, Bakari, that if you're getting $2-3 million as a college student, as a college athlete, then you are actually speeding up the process it takes to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But I think to Scotty's point, it's no different if you decide to go to law school or medical school, right? Those tracks or, past education don't necessarily come built in with financial advisors. So, I think it's an incredible opportunity, right? I think that what comes along, it's like, to whom much is given, much is required, right? So hopefully the athletes that are in the positions to receive such large influxes, hopefully they have access to, I hope, the resources to be able to manage those funds. I think more so than them managing the funds, I think my concern is like, what from a collegiate standpoint, right? We were just talking about folks threatening FBI agents. What's being done on a collegiate level to protect athletes, right? Because you got the name, the likeness, where they're going to be, where they practice, all of those things. So I think to me, the con and the sort of scary part of that is knowing, just age-wise, right, you're dealing with younger population, the frontal lobe may not be fully formed just yet, right? So they're in a position to really be taken advantage of and to experience, I think, maybe some predatory offers and folks that, kind of see the position that they're in. So I think the financial protection is one, and just overall, just, my concern is like, do they have the infrastructure in place to just really protect their identity, Right. And it's easy. Like when you hear that one person is making millions, it's easy to assume that everybody's deal is like that, right? Like you see that on the side of the FedEx trucks, like, we don't carry cash, right? Because you want everybody to know that just because one person is balling like that, we're not all balling like that. So, what protection is going to be put in place to, to bar folks from being able to solicit them or just even, gain access to them on a physical level?
Absolutely. And I want to go to a comment that Davey made, but Davey flowed. I see you, bro. Davey, you said every time we talking about paying Black people, we got to talk about financial literacy. It's not necessary.
Hey, Farajii, can I throw something to you real quick?
Go ahead, Scott.
What's the difference between an NFL player who gets in a league and goes broke in 3 years and a college player who does 4 years and gets $2 million? What's the difference? You know, like, to me, they both need financial literacy.
That's the whole point. That's what I was going to say, bro. Like this is not just about black people getting paid. This is about young people. Young people. And unless you come from a household with financial literacy, your understanding and relationship with money is a healthy relationship. Then why shouldn't you learn how to manage money? Because guess what? A lot of people ain't touching millions of dollars a year, man. Especially I know I ain't touched $2-3 million at 21, 19 years old. Shit, man, what are you talking about? I need some help, bro. Set some boundaries. I need some help.
Right.
It's not just about, it's just black people. Because guess what? One of the great sciences that we have not been taught as a people as a result of our experience in the transatlantic slave trade is the science of money.
Yeah.
You know, we have lost that, right? And in this capitalistic system, man, if you were given $3 million and you blow that, like you said, Scotty, in 2 years, 3 million in 2-3 years, you get 3 million as a sophomore in college. By the time you become a senior, that shit gone. You don't think that happens? Grown men do that. They get in a league and they blow it.
And we talking about 3 times more, 10 million, 30 million. You know, it doesn't, it's the mindset.
It's a mindset. And that's all I'm saying. Like, we all can benefit from being taught how to, and I had a financial planner on yesterday. He said that a lot of money management starts with how you think. What is your relationship? Yeah. He said he has a money avoidance issue. You know, he don't like to check his bank accounts and all of that. Yeah. You got to know how your relationship with money, because you can't manage $10 the same way you manage 3 million. Like, it just doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? You're like, I got 3 million in the bank, so I'm gonna just put that in a space where you can grow off of that, because you said it, Bakari, you said it. That situation of you being able to play football, it may not go beyond the college years. And wouldn't that be a hell of a thing, man? This has to be probably one of the most embarrassing situations. You get to school, you in college, you the hot player. You getting all this money, getting all this attention. Okay, you don't make it into the pros. People be like, boy, I know you still got them cars. You up there like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, yo. It was nice to test drive.
Hey, hit him with that 50 Cent. He was like, what 50 Cent say? He said, dang, homie, in high school, you was the man, homie. Like, hey, you gotta hit him with that.
You were the big dog on campus.
Yeah, you was that guy.
You know what I'm saying? You were the big guy on campus. You get off the campus, you graduate. You know how people are. They still expect you to still thrive. You be like, yo, so I know you got money, boy. You be like, yo, you going out tonight? I know we going back on the boat like you did back in a year ago. You're like, nah, bro, I'm not going on the boat tonight, man.
I got to check it in the savings.
Matter of fact, can I keep it a buck with you, bro? I had to rent the boat. I had to sell the boat because I can't live on the boat, bro. I had to. Come on, man. We gotta have some financial literacy. All right, let's get one more piece and let's get a couple of more responses in. A golf Twitler, you said the schools should definitely be transparent about the money they are making from sports, and they need to use that funding to better the ability they possess to give people an education. What are the and as far as you know, Scotty, what are the accountability measures that the school is going to put in place to ensure some level of accountability and transparency during this new ruling? Have you heard anything about it?
Schools can't be a part of NIL deals. So they can all they can do is on the back end say, hey, we're going to help you manage it, but they can't directly be a part of the deal. That's against the rules. So, because then you'll have coaches, saying, hey, I can get you this deal, and hey, I can get you that deal. And now you start flirting paying for players. See, that's the difference. A lot of people are like, oh, they're paying for the player is getting money off their likeness. But when you start adding coaches telling players, hey, I can get you $1 million here, I can get you 500,000 here, that falls in the line of paying for players. So schools can have direct contact when it comes for NIL deals.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I'm glad that you brought that up. And Golf, thank you so much for bringing that point up. Young Seek, you've been checking in lately, Young Seek, so I appreciate this. You said to keep the team dynamic, you pay them all the same based off of profit. Let the meritocracy begin in the pros. I'm waiting on your response, Scotty.
You don't even do that. You wouldn't even want that at your regular job. If you working harder than everybody else, you're gonna be like, hey, yeah, just pay us all the same. Like, no, you're not. Like, stop thinking like that. That's not realistic. You wouldn't even, if you was mopping the floors twice as hard as everybody else, you wouldn't want to get paid the same, because then you're gonna be looking around like, man, this dude ain't even working. He getting paid just like me. This Bama not even working. He making the same. Stop it. Like, you gotta impart yourself, like put your life in it. Like, if you was at your job tomorrow and everybody got paid the same, and you a director and you manage 20 people over somebody who delivers the mail, stop it. Come on, man. What are you doing?
Now I gotta push back though. So
go ahead.
You know how I feel about cooperative economics. So there's a part I do understand, I think, the point that they're making in terms of that, but I think with sports it's different just because of it's just not the same, right? I've worked in kitchens, I've had so many jobs, and I've been in environments where we are all, we're pooling tips or whatever the case may be. And you do create the dynamic that Scotty mentioned, right? When you have one person that's slacking or one person that's not necessarily carrying the same level of weight. But I think the pro to that is we all have bad days, right? So it's better that one person is insulated to have a bad day and still walk away with something, as opposed to you had a bad day and now you have absolutely nothing on this particular day, right? So, when we talk about, it's nowhere near the same as like mutual aid, right? But it's that similar type of context where we're going to be able to take care of one another. I think it would be interesting to see what that looks like from a team standpoint, and to see like how that would actually play out. I think that because we're in a capitalist country, though, it will stay in an experimental and an idea for people to ponder. But I don't think anybody's willing to physically, and especially in football, so violently put their bodies and their brains on the line. I don't necessarily think that everyone is willing to necessarily take that same risk, especially when you just look the risk alone of sustaining a brain injury. I'm sure, Scotty, you probably could speak to what level of risk you take in terms of getting a brain injury based on the position that you play. And just based on the position alone, you would be able to sort of suss out or not suss out, but to determine the difference in how much each person's, sort of breakdown or cut would be of what they're getting off of that collective pot. But it's interesting.
Like, I don't mind the baseline, but to only stop it there, like everybody, like I don't mind everybody getting, okay, if everybody getting 15K, that's the baseline for everybody, cool. But don't penalize somebody who's outperforming everybody to he only get 15K to now the person who's on the bench, he's still getting 15K. That doesn't make sense to me. That's what I'm saying. So I agree with you on the cooperative economics that everybody, like you said, bad day, I'm hurt, I'm injured, I'm still getting my 15K. But when I come back in the game and I outperform, let me get my worth for what I performed to.
Absolutely. Folks, we're going to have to stop the conversation right there. But Scotty, I truly appreciate you, brother, for sharing your insight and expertise on this. And we'll certainly do our due diligence to bring you back on to talk about more issues related to the sports world. But thank you so much, brother. How can folks check out your podcast and stay in tune with the work you're doing?
You can catch me on YouTube, Off Script, and you can catch me on Instagram and Twitter, offscript_TV. Yep, that's me. I appreciate y'all for that. That's what's up. Appreciate y'all.
That's the love here on the culture, Scotty. We got to show you love. You showed us love. We show you love, bro. All right, there it is. Scotty, who is a YouTuber, podcaster, a sports analyst, host of Off Script. Check him out right there, folks. Continue to follow him, support him as he covers Black sports. He just did a phenomenal job covering some of the big conferences And I was checking out his videos of the quarterback camp that you covered too, bro. So that was a good look right there. And I'm excited to see what you got lined up for this upcoming NFL season. So I'll be tuned in. But thank you so much for joining us here on The Culture today, Scotty.
Thank you, Bakari. Thank you, Farajii.
Thank you.
No problem. Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, now we've talked about quiet quitting, but what about quiet firing? How when your employer decides to let you go, but not really telling you why. We'll have that conversation. We'll continue the discussion with our culture crew member, Bakari Jones, and we'll also bring in Sinead Okorafor, who is a diversity, equity, inclusion specialist, to talk about this new trend. And later on, let's talk about HBCU week, folks. It kicks off next week, and we'll be sharing with you what some of the festivities, especially in the DMV, is going to be doing to celebrate HBCUs all across the country. So stay with us. Those conversations are coming up in the next hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Stay with us.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome to the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in and being with us today, having some dynamic conversations. If you missed the first conversation that we had, well, the first hour, we've been talking about President Biden and his big message yesterday to MAGA Republicans. We talked a little bit about that, and we talked about the NCAA ruling that allows players, college athletes, to get paid and the implications of that. So 2 big conversations you don't want to miss. So make sure you go back to the replay. Check us out at blackstarnetwork.com to get all of the latest news and information. But definitely check out those 2 conversations. All right, I wanted to switch gears now, folks, to talk about a phenomenon that we have been seeing on the other side. Now, I brought to your attention about this whole thing, this trend called quiet quitting, when you're just doing the bare minimum at your job, because you just might get to a place with your job where you're just like, you know what? I don't need to be doing all the extra stuff. I don't need to be putting myself out there. I'm quietly quitting. Well, there is also another trend that we're seeing in the workplace, and that is quiet firing. Yeah, folks. Here comes quiet firing. This is when employers, and I'm going to share with you this very quickly, Ariel and Keenan. Keenan, let's put this up there. Thank you, sir. You said this is if we're going to accuse workers of quiet quitting, we should also acknowledge the phenomenon of quiet firing, in which employers avoid providing all but the bare legal minimum, possibly with the aim of getting unwanted employees to quit. They also said they may deny raises for years, fail to supply resources while piling on demands, give feedback designed to frustrate and confuse, or grant privileges to select workers based on vague, inconsistent performance standards. Those who don't like it are welcome to leave. Wow. I think I've been in a couple of jobs like that, folks. They wanted me to leave. Let's talk about this phenomenon. Let's bring back Culture Crew member. She's an activist. She's an advocate. She's a nonprofit leader. She's a strategist. Kari Jones checking in. And we also have our diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, our brother Sinedu Wakofor, checking in as well for this conversation. All right, Sinedu, Bakari, quiet quitting. Sinedu, I'm going to start with you on this one, sir, because you work in a workspace. You all about diversity and equity. Why would an employer do this? Why don't they just tell people what it really is? Talk to me, Sinead. Tell me the truth, sir.
Well, this probably goes against the HR department of where I work, but this probably also goes with the truth of, what God has provided. I think, honestly, I think a lot of what's going on is employees, I'll go from quiet quitting to quiet firing. Employees are starting to regain the power that they haven't had for years. This idea of quiet quitting is because of the horror stories that many of the employees have heard from their parents, from people who are older. And what happens is, with there now being a new sense of autonomy onto the employee, the employer feels lost in power. So now the employer wants to replicate that thing and do the quiet firing, which is not quiet at all. It's actually very loud and it's gone on forever by not giving you raises, by not allowing you to have professional development, those 6-month reviews, by not putting you in a space where you can shine, by not giving you all the resources that you need to get better. And that's why even in the position that I'm in, I always tell employees, always do what's best for you, because the company will always do what's best for them.
Facts.
Damn.
Facts.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? And Bakari, you know what? As soon as Sinead, you hit me with that one. Damn. I'm serious. Because you know why? Because in America, in the system of capitalism, folks, I'm going to beat up on the system of capitalism. We give feelings to corporations.
Mm-hmm.
We humanize entities. And as a result of that, we feel like, for example, Bakari, that if we're not in the space, like, oh, they're going to miss me when I'm gone.
No. That job is already posted.
Been posted.
Then, before they sent the flowers to your loved ones for your loss, the job was already posted. Let's be clear.
At a lesser price, too.
Come on. Come on. He wasn't doing that much anyway. We could probably bring it down 5 or 10 at least.
Mm-hmm.
But no, why did we humanize these? Like, and to your point, Sinead, you're talking about like, do what's best for you. Because some of us, we really feel guilty, Bakari, when we have to leave a job. We like, man, like it's a struggle for some, and I'm just saying for some, not all of us, of course.
Yeah.
Some of others, we could just leave a job. We switch job like we do underwear. You know what I'm saying? We'd be like, all right, I'm done. What, you asked me to work? Oh, you asked me to work an extra 30 minutes. You know what? I don't need this. I don't need this. I'm bing bong. I'm gone. I mean, I feel like, but for those who want to keep that consistency and flow, we really do have like a guilty complex, a guilt when we quit a job and we impose the supervisor on the entity and like, no, if I leave, my supervisor ain't going to have certain people around them and all of that. We go through this whole drama. And then at the end of the day, when there's time for the corporation to part ways with you, they don't think too much about it. But I don't like the shadiness. I don't like all of this quiet firing where they're like, don't give you a raise and stuff. Just tell me, like, let me know. What happened to the days where they say, okay, your performance is not meeting our expectations, so here's some first warning? Why go through the whole quiet firing process?
In my experience, it's usually a result of the supervisor not doing their due diligence along the way. So if you had someone who has, unfortunately, poor performance, they've had poor performance, let's say January to we're in September now, they've had poor performance all year, but you haven't documented it. You didn't write down every little infraction. Now it's September, you recognize that it's a problem. In some instances, it could be faster to take the quiet firing approach rather than starting the documentation process I gave you a warning in September. Now I got to wait till October for you to write. And I got to carry you through the holiday season when you haven't been performing all year. Right. But if I didn't do my due diligence on the front end, my hands are tied because of the restrictions that are in place from an HR standpoint. You can't just fire me because you didn't give me a warning. You didn't do any of those things, but you can deny me some of these other places. You can, and again, even from an employment law standpoint, you could make a case against someone creating a hostile environment, but the time that it takes, the resources that you have to amass in order to actually be able to follow through with that is probably just faster and cheaper for sure if you don't overstep your bounds from an HR standpoint and put yourself in a situation where you could be sued.
Right.
Then it'll be faster for you to take the quiet firing approach.
Right. And Sinead, for you in your HR department, is this a practice that is frowned upon by HR professionals and representatives?
No, not at all. You know what's funny? it's interesting how we address or attach intrinsic humanistic values to a corporation, but a corporation, it doesn't live or breathe. The people of the corporation live or breathe, right? So it's interesting to me that in one instance, it's like, you know, we're a family. That's always what everybody is selling. You know, we're a family, and, you know, family, family, family. But then what happens is, even with the documentation, I believe in this day and age, documentation is sometimes somewhat passive. Do people, and this is my issue with all corporations, everybody keeps saying that nobody has the time to teach. So then what the hell is going on? If no one's teaching anymore, if no one has the time, then this has nothing to do with how good my work is. It's as long as my work can supply the business need, that's great. Even if I'm not learning, if I'm just regurgitating and that regurgitation is strong enough to meet our shareholders' needs, then we're good to go. And that's why you have a lot of people who are very good workers, but when it comes down to knowledge base, they don't really know a whole bunch of what they're doing.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's take some comments from our online culture crew. Sandy, you checked in and you said if you quiet quitting, then you know corporations going to get petty. Yeah. Yeah. Let's put it. Let's say it like this. If you don't mind this, Sandy, I'm gonna just make a small revision. Your supervisor gets petty. And one thing that I find to be very interesting is that supervisors at any job, depending on the person, right? Like sometimes the supervisor has taken on this task of being the corporation, quote unquote, right? And I'm gonna tell y'all something, man. This is just a personal thing. I always find it fascinating and problematic to have a supervisor where the job is their life.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Because guess what? You won't understand me then. Because you know why? The job is not my life. It's not my life. Like I'm not spending 8 hours at the job, then coming home, spending more time at the job, then on weekends thinking about the job, opening myself up to, hey, y'all can call me on my off day if you need to. That's not happening. That's not happening. No, we're not. That's not my life. That may be your life, but that's not my life. I got other things I need to do. No. So, you know, I see that's the part of it, that the people, that sometimes there's this expectation from supervisors at the job that the job is my life, therefore it should be your life. And it's like, no, that's not it. How do you resolve that, Bakari?
Millie rock up out of those environments because it's not. I mean, I think many of us have been in that environment. The other thing I was going to say to your point, Farajii, I think part of that, at least in my experience, is sort of being raised by a boomer, right? So I think it's even easier to kind of have this ingrained sense of loyalty to a corporation. But I think our generation, we've experienced far too much, right? I think, at least for me, right, the recession, what was that, in 2008, seeing the way that folks were laid off at that point in time, that kind of, you know, dispelled that fantasy or that fantasy, that myth that these corporations were going to continue to take care of us. So, you know, it's just getting out of that environment. And I think, you know, Farajii, we try to stay on our high vibration. I think it's also finding work and positions that really don't feel like, you know, as much as possible, they don't really feel like work, right? They feel like they're more in alignment with our purpose and what it is that we're called to do. I think because when you're in that environment, right, you're still going to have some things, right? We all got the things that we got to work out, but I don't think that you necessarily experience the same level of discomfort when you are showing up trying to do a job where you're not being paid to think critically, you're not being paid to discern, you are being paid to make the donuts, right, and pass the piece along on the conveyor belt and get the next right? Whatever the next one is, that's all you're being paid and compensated for. So I think just not being in those environments, because I think once you're in that space, really is not, those typically are not, in my experience, again, those are not spaces where innovation is really celebrated, honored, and in some instances, it's not even tolerated, right? We're not going to tolerate you trying to come in and innovate and make improvements. This is the way it is. We prefer it this way because of the cost, benefit, I'm sure. But yeah, just for me, removing myself from those, I'm loudly quitting probably and moving up out of those experiences.
Let me tell you, hey, I'm loudly quitting. I'm quitting. If the situation is just not working out, it's just not working out.
Yeah.
And I think that we're starting to see the other part about this phenomenon is the simple fact that people are going to remote work, right? A lot of corporations, and I'm sure, in the work that you're doing, Sinead, you're saying that people are saying, okay, now, even though we're kind of past the peak of COVID and even with this monkeypox and stuff, people are still preferring to work remotely. And now corporations and companies are saying, well, you need to come back in here. And then folks are saying, well, you probably need to look for somebody else for this role because I'm not coming back. Like either you adjust or I adjust. And I know that there are a number of people that are pushing back on, corporations are pushing back on this evolving trend in the workplace. And to your point earlier that you made, Sinead, workers are saying, no, you got to put things in perspective. The big thing that I think came out of the COVID-19 pandemic was how we work. And one of the things, the lessons that we learned is life is short. You don't want to spend all of your time at a place that doesn't give you the greatest amount of fulfillment. Or even if you do love the job, at the end of the day, your job is not your life, right? Like there are so many more things that we need to have that we can enjoy. So if you could kind of speak to that a little bit, Sinead, with this remote work, the way it's going, do you see quiet quitting continuing to be a trend?
No. No. Well, jobs are going to have to evolve.
Quiet firing, rather. Yeah.
And this is what people have to understand. I like to be very historical. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the biggest tech companies in the world back in the day, International Business Machine, IBM is what we know it as. They set up that office space that most of us got used to, cubicles and stuff like that. And it was very serious. Then along comes somebody like Google, who now set up their space of shared space and everything. And people said it wouldn't work. And then Google became very successful. And now literally any company that's tech wants that look. Even universities, Morgan State, starts to copy that look as well because that trend works. I'll give you another example, then I'm going to get back to what we're talking about. Do you remember a couple of years ago, I think it was Hillary Clinton, she was running for office, and she emphatically spoke and said that there is no way we could forgive student loans. Even though Bernie was pushing it, she said there's no way. By the time she ran again, she started to speak about it, even though some people said there's still no way. And now it just happened. The issue with the remote work system and the issue with corporations and many big thinkers and big ideas, they keep telling folks like the workers that these things are impossible. The whole work from home concept was impossible until a global pandemic. Then it was possible, and then people made record profits without losing employees. Some even brought employees on. I think we have to get to the level that these corporations, they're steeped in the idea of control. They're steeped in the idea of groupthink. And in my opinion, the corporations of America, if you ask me, they also match the education system of America, where it's boxed thinking. Everybody wants you to be an out-of-the-box thinker until you think out of the box. And then once you go there, it becomes very uncomfortable for the structure of the system. So I think where we are now with the quiet quitting thing, it's going to change the atmosphere, if you will, on what employees expect from their job places and stuff of that nature. And just real quick, if I could give advice to anybody who's shopping for jobs, when you're interviewing or being interviewed, it's also very important for you to interview. And I would suggest that you ask these questions. I would suggest that you ask the manager, if that's the person interviewing you, how long they've been with the company, what are their future plans with the company? Because once you know how your manager operates, that can tell you how well you'll do in that space. That can tell you if you're intimidated by you, if your manager is here, is your manager a black skinned person to keep a wedge in between maybe SVPs and everybody. These are things you got to ask. You got to ask questions, make your own decisions based off of what you hear about management as well.
Sinead, I never did that. No, seriously, that's great advice, bro. I never did that. And can you imagine, Ricard, you can imagine you sitting up in there, they be like, so what's your 5 years? Well, before we talk about my 5 years,
let me hear you.
What's your 5-year plan?
Right.
I mean, do you foresee managing me? Because you seem like a good person, but
Farajii.
If you're leaving in a year, I'm leaving in a year.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
They be looking at Ricard and Sinead, they be like, I mean, wait, girl, I'm trying to get up out of here. That's when, you know how black folks start to be like, can I keep
it real?
I just put in my 2 weeks yesterday. So you're like the last person that I'm hiring. And then you respond like, can I tell you something? I don't want the job. Because I don't know who's coming after you.
Because Farajii, when you join a new job, and then your direct, not your main manager, but your direct lead or your direct supervisor, when you join a job and they quit 3 weeks later, that's why you have to ask questions like that. This is something that I'm learning in real time. And you got to ask these questions because everything is aligned. And because sometimes people quit in the most democratic way, which is we need to start hiring more people in our sector. I don't mind training them. And then all of a sudden, I have put in so much work for this company. I think it's time to let the new that's also a form of that. That's what I'll call indiscriminate quitting. You know, you're just kind of moving to the side and doing it. But this is why it's important for employees taking control. In my opinion, the employer does not have the control because the employee has the skill that the employer wants. The employer has the money, but the skill is what's going to make them the money as well. It's important that as the employee that you ask all of the questions, you check on them. What are their life stories? How long have they been in this business? Because that'll tell you, is this an old school thinker or is this a new school thinker? All of these things matter.
Right. Man, hey, Sinead, do you ever thought about giving workshops on how to quit and get hired?
I definitely should.
Sinead, do workshops go be like how to be black at work? No, that's real talk. But I think as we wrap up this part, I mean, I think the big thing is to know your worth before you even go into a space, right? Like to understand, like to your point, Sinead, you're the ones bringing what the jobs want. You're the ones with the skills. You dictate the agenda. And I think a lot of us, we do make those decisions about whether we're going to work from a place just because of money, availability, the necessity of paying the bills and all of those things. But at the end of the day, when the corporation says, you know what, thank you for your time and your service, they make those decisions indiscriminately. They just, and here's the thing about the quiet firing phenomenon. It's like I've been in work situations personally, and I've seen other people go through it, that when a job is not happy with your performance, they drag it out. And you want to know something that wears on the will and the spirit of you wanting to do your job? When they drag it out. That's what I've experienced. Like, okay, if you're not feeling what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, they drag it out. And it's like, well, let's go through, you have those, like you said, Bakari, you have those meetings like, yes, let's have those You know, this is the warning and all of that. Yeah, folks, I've gotten into all them places, right? Because I mean, sometimes when it's hard to work at a job if it doesn't align with who you are. It's just hard. It's just hard. I know that. That's my consciousness is not at peace. So, Bakar, you got the final word on this. What's your take?
Quit loudly. I mean, I don't know what else we can. I don't know what else.
Quit loudly.
Quit loud. Honestly, Farajii, I think just from a positivity standpoint, it's really finding spaces that feel in alignment with who you are. I think to Sineadu's point, you know, asking yourself those questions, you know, before going into the interview, and then asking those questions when you're in the interview to really figure out more of the landscape and recognize that this is a relationship, right? And both parties in that relationship really need to make sure that their needs are being met in order for that partnership to work.
Yeah. Yep. There it is. There it is. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. As we come forward, we're going to talk about something that's very exciting. HBCUs. It is HBCU week at Maryland Public Television. And today we're going to have a conversation about how the station and the platform is going to be celebrating our 101 HBCUs from across the country. That celebrations kicks off next week. So we'll have that conversation when we return. So stay with us. HBCU week is going to be the discussion right here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20036-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Okay, so September 5th through September 11th is a special time of year because Maryland Public Television is going to do its part to celebrate the 101 HBCUs That's the historically Black college and universities in America. So they have a very, very special HBCU week that is going to be aired throughout all of next week to talk about the great values and contributions and all the goods and feels of being a part of the HBCU community. So today, we are happy to be joined by Mr. Travis Mitchell, who serves as the Senior Vice President at MPT, to talk about what we can expect in HBCU week celebration. Travis, thank you so much, sir, for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's good to see you, my friend.
Yes, sir, brother. Yes, sir. First and foremost, talking about the work of MPT, this is Maryland Public Television, the work that you guys continue to do. It's very similar to what we do here on the Black Star Network, which is, to give people the unadulterated, unfiltered, truth about a lot of different things. But it's interesting that now that we're in a space right now, Travis, where we're seeing that education seems to be the priority in so many ways, especially given the student loan situation. But that has brought into the conversation how do we make sure that the HBCUs that we have in this country are sustained and stay viable and add as contributing factors to the culture and to the larger educational landscape. What do you see as how HBCUs are moving forward? Do you feel like we are shining enough positive light on what these institutions are bringing?
No, I don't, Farajii. I don't think media in general shines the right light on HBCUs. We either talk about the historic significance of HBCUs during the civil rights era particularly, or we tend to sensationalize in the mainstream media the negative stories that are perpetuated by ignorance and misinformation about HBCUs. So let's put it in the proper context with the numbers. So HBCUs make up less than 10% of American four-year universities, I believe. Yet they graduate 25% of all STEM majors. That's extraordinary when you're only factoring in the fact that there are only 101 HBCUs, and of those, there are only 15 plus HBCUs with engineering schools, as an example. So HBCUs still disproportionately deliver the lion's share of STEM majors and those who are entering into the professions. So, for instance, nursing majors or teachers or lawyers or doctors. And why is that? It's because you have students concentrated in spaces, Black spaces, where they can be who they are without shunning their identity. It's a place for affirmation and confirmation. It doesn't mean that Black students at PWIs aren't successful or don't have support mechanisms in place. It simply means that there is a slice of the larger higher education ecosystem that is disproportionately producing skilled labor. So if America is to remain globally competitive as a nation and seriously wants to take advantage of its competitive advantage, then it would be more serious in investing in and developing the capacity of HBCUs to serve more. Now, there's another myth that is perpetuated by the mainstream media, and that is that HBCUs largely have students that could not get into PWIs. That couldn't be further from the truth. I, for instance, am a HBCU graduate, a proud graduate, as you know, of Morgan State University. I grew up on the campus of Shaw University, the oldest HBCU in the South, and spent some time as my father was a basketball coach at Delaware State University, living on that campus. So HBCUs run through my blood. I have a master's degree from UPenn and a combo program from Wharton and the School of Education. But make no mistake, my grounding came from Morgan. I had scholarships to go to PWIs, and I chose an HBCU experience, not because my SAT or my GPA wasn't good enough, but I chose a place that would develop the raw potential in me to teach me how to ascend to the leadership I was destined to ascend to. Now, again, I'm all for all of our students having choices, but let's not provide a false narrative or counterfactual to the realities of HBCUs.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think it's very important that, you know, that the NPT uses their platform to put it out there, the importance and the value of HBCUs, because it shapes so many people, and it provides a context on so many different parts of the struggle. And so, for example, you know, when we're talking about student loans, when we're talking about, you know, the political disparity that we're seeing in this country and so many other, you know, pressing issues, you have to look through those issues, especially us. Well, how does this affect Black people? How does this affect the next generation of Black thinkers and Black doers? You know, to ensure that that context stays at the forefront of our thinking when we're making some of those big decisions on policy or programs or looking at institutions in the long run. Now, the thing that MPT is doing, this is your third annual HBCU Week celebration. It's gonna be starting on September the 5th,
yes,
on Monday, all the way up to the 11th, 22 hours. What type of programming, Brother Travis, can we expect during those 22 hours?
Well, first and foremost, this is a showcase opportunity for some dynamic filmmakers. Some of them are some incredibly dynamic filmmakers from Howard University, from North Carolina A&T, but it's where schools have control of their narrative. So if they have a documentary about their history, we have history documentaries, have documentaries about art and music, the contributions of HBCU graduates to sports and entertainment. But really, it's to make sure that we can showcase the type of films that haven't been seen on other media platforms. So it's an authentic week presenting the true narratives of HBCUs, from the historic foundational past to what HBCUs are doing to have contemporary relevance. For instance, in the HBCUs in this area, the 6 HBCUs in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, otherwise known as the DMV, we're focusing on many of their innovative programs, from cybersecurity to blockchain, to many of the programs that HBCUs have that are very unique that people don't know about because they don't get the type of exposure. We're also weaving in student voices so you can hear from and see the next generation of leaders that are currently on our HBCU campuses. So we give our viewers a menu of options to really fit their taste palettes. And whether you are into art or history or music, we provide those types of programs on HBCU Week. Now, we also have something that's critically important. It's called Conversations for Change. We taped it a year ago. It was virtual conversation, but we brought it to TV so that people could see a 90-minute special where you have some of the best and brightest leaders within the HBCU ecosystem, from presidents to student government presidents to alumni to business people to legislators, all talking about the HBCU experience and what must happen if we're going to move to the next level of ascendancy for our prosperity.
Hey, Brother Travis, I want to get this before we bring back our culture crew members, but Misrespect 90, who's watching us right now on as we're streaming, she posed a great question. She said, how can people watch that live outside of Maryland?
That's a great question. So if you go to mpt.org/HBCU, if you go to the website, many of the shows will be available on demand. So if you go back to that website, as soon as it is over, you can see it. But also, if you go to the website, it'll tell you how you can watch via our stream anytime, anywhere. And I believe we have removed the geofencing, so you'll be able to stream it wherever you are. And Farajii, I will send you back a link that you can provide to those who support you, your viewers, so that you can share that information on an as-needed basis.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. I want to bring back my culture crew, Bakari Jones, Brother Shanedu Wakorfor. Shanedu, I know that you went to an HBCU. I think you went to the Great Morgan State University, if I'm not mistaken.
Say that again. I was having some university. Say that again. This is my dude right here. What's up, Shanedu? What's going on, man?
What's up, Travis, man? It's good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too.
Bakari, I think you and I mean, you know, we're probably honorary, but we didn't necessarily graduate from an HBCU, but it's okay. It's all good. It's all good. I'm wondering, Travis, as we looking at HBCUs, and we had this conversation earlier this week, so I'm happy that you on here. You bring your personal and professional expertise on this. David Banner, who is an activist and an artist, he made the statement earlier this week saying that Black people or Black students, their only option for higher learning and higher institutions should be HBCUs. What's your take on that?
Well, I respect David Banner. I mean, I got a chance to meet him. A good friend of ours, Lavelle Moten at North Carolina Central, kind of connected us, and I think he's brilliant. I just respectfully disagree. And as much as I'm an advocate for HBCUs, I'm also an advocate for student choice. And I think students have to choose the universities that best suit them. And I think we can do both at the same time. We can pursue choice and diversity of options, and we can also protect our HBCUs to make sure that they remain a very viable route for students who choose to go there. And again, I went to an HBCU undergrad and I chose another path for graduate school, but it doesn't mean that HBCU graduate schools aren't the best. So the reality is, if we're going to play chess, not checkers, we've got to be able to be nimble and adaptable. And the most important thing is we need to protect our people and make sure that they have options to pursue higher education no matter where they go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm all for student choice as well, Travis. So, you know, I had to respectfully disagree with David on that one. I want to bring up another part of this because as also as during this celebration, Travis, that this is part of a statewide networks of standing against racism, fostering unity through dialogue initiative. Talk to us a little bit about this initiative and what is the standing against racism? Where is that coming from? And what is that we need to be aware of?
Well, one of the things that we did in the post George Floyd era is we decided as a leadership, and I give our CEO credit, he said, well, let's not react, let's respond, right? And I thought that one of the ways to respond is let's take something that we can do with our platform. If you look at the picture behind me, it's a picture of a film on Maryland Public Television that I think symbolizes the shift that we're trying to make. So Maryland Public Television and public media in general was designed to serve underserved communities, code word for communities of color, but has failed beyond educational programming to really deliver on that promise. And what I believe has to happen, I've been very vocal about this, is that public media stations that are for the people, belong to the people, should be that equalizer where people have access to the public airwaves that their taxpayers, tax dollars pay for, and they should be able to have equal voice and equity. And so every time you turn on a public media station, you should be able to see your community reflected. Now, we have a long way to go at Maryland Public Television, and PBS has a long way to go. So where do we start? And I thought the place to start is the 22 hours that we're presenting is unprecedented. There's no local TV station, no other public media affiliate, no national network, no Black national network that has ever shown 22 hours exclusively about the HBCU experience. So if you think about that, perhaps there are some students that would have opted in to go to an HBCU, but didn't know what HBCUs had to offer. Perhaps there are students who would have gone, but the myths and the misinformation and the misperception discouraged them from going. So when we at Maryland Public Television use this as an example, I think it is an example for the entire public media ecosystem. And I'm working with PBS and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to make sure that we can bring HBCU Week national with fully participating affiliates across the country so that we can amplify the mission and illuminate the progress and the importance of HBCUs.
Bakari, I know that you got to jump off in about 60 seconds or so, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to chime in. As we're talking about celebrate HBCUs, having an opportunity to see the triumphs and the great things that HBCUs are doing on this platform. Talk to us about what do you think of it?
both my parents graduated from Morgan, so it's a pleasure to just be in the space with you, with all of you this afternoon. I think this excites me to see. I think some of the myths dispelled about HBCU. So I'm excited about that aspect of the program, and I think just the opportunity for our culture to be celebrated in a different way. And this is breaking a record, right? Which is not something that's foreign to us culturally. So I think it's exciting, and hats off. I hope that we could get to see this this week continue in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great time to do it. Bakari, always appreciate you, sis. Thank you so much for being with us here on the culture, and keep being so good for the culture, Bakari. Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right, y'all have a good weekend, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to keep Sinead, I want to bring you back into this as well. But there was and I'm seeing Jessica, I see you on our chat. Jessica, you talked about would it be nice if all education was faceless, no gender, no color, anonymous. And that would be nice. That really would be nice. But the unfortunate thing is, this is America, and it's not that way. But is that a goal that we need to strive to reach, Travis, when we're talking about getting people to understand the value and the importance of HBCUs?
Yeah, well, there are a couple of things. First of all, HBCUs have been some of the most diverse campus environments since their inception, obviously, because you had white professors and you had white administrators and you had white students. What people don't realize is that in many communities, especially in the rural South, you had poor white students who also were students at HBCUs. So HBCUs were integrated long before diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice became a thing. Secondarily, I don't think it is reflective, or I don't think it goes against what Jessica's aspirational goals are, to be who you are. And the fact that students opt into an HBCU experience and they happen to be Black doesn't make it an exclusive environment to just Black people. I think what we're saying is that be who you are, be proud of who you are, and choose the culture that is best for you. And I think what we need to look at perhaps are the models and the examples of how HBCUs have integrated into society, not for integration's sake, but meaning they've integrated into local economies for years. I mean, in Tuskegee, for instance, let's use that as an example. At Tuskegee in Alabama, think about this. In one of the greatest times of lynching in post-Reconstruction was in the founding era of Tuskegee Institute and its rise. And I don't want to get into debate about Du Bois and Washington for the moment, but think about this. In Alabama, where there were more lynching of Black people than anywhere else in the country, maybe Mississippi, Tuskegee, with George Washington Carver, taught rural, uneducated white farmers in the communities in and around Tuskegee how to properly take care of their soil. And so some of the very Klan members listened to the wisdom of Carver and respected Tuskegee for its ability to help them save their livelihoods. Booker T. Washington also had foresight, and Tuskegee made bricks and mattresses that they sold in that local community. So Tuskegee was integrated in the local economy in a way that has been underreported. So the fact is, if you take Tuskegee out of Alabama, Alabama's economy would have collapsed. And so the point that I'm trying to make is, if we understand the impact that HBCUs have had in these smaller markets, these smaller towns, they are driving the economy in those cities. And so then people would have a healthy understanding of the role of HBCUs, not as a nice thing to have, but as a necessary institute for their survival.
Sinead, one of the things that, as I'm listening to Travis, that comes to my mind is, why should or do Black students know this? That when they are part of an HBCU, when they are, a part of this coveted community, that they are actually making history? Do you think they know this? And if they don't know this, how do we instill this into them so they can become advocates and ambassadors for the HBCUs, even while they're still going to classes on campus?
I'm glad you asked, and unfortunately, a lot of students don't know this, but there's also an opportunity to fix that. And I always tell people about we can look back at ancient history or recent history, or we could look back at living history. There was just an HBCU equity a lawsuit case in Maryland, for instance. That's history that just recently happened, and it was involving students that graduated from that university within the last 10 years. There's many students who could say I was a part of this one way or another. And I think in the new way of getting students to understand the importance of yesterday is telling them how today connects to it. How did we get here? How did this lead to this that led to this? And how they're still impacted by it. I think it's an honor to be at an HBCU, and when people go, I think a lot of times people do the what I would call the quick B-roll of the yard and all that good. And that's the cool part as well. But another cool part is understanding that it's bigger than you, and understanding that every step led to you taking that first step. And for those steps to continue, you also have a job to do. And everyone's not going to be an activist, but you can learn, you can teach. And more importantly, it's very important, to your Black colleagues who are at PWI, you can lend a hand to welcome them into their history as well, because you can still have the HBCU spirit without going to an HBCU.
An HBCU, yeah.
Right. And I think to my final question to you, Brother Travis, is that, to Sinead's point, we often see about the culture. And earlier this week when we talked about HBCUs, I was like, that we emphasize culture, but there needs to be more emphasis on the programs, the courses, because as you said earlier, Brother Travis, when you look at the colleges and universities and the DMV, the HBCUs and the DMV, you're talking about cybersecurity, you're talking about engineering, you're talking about, these are courses that can lead to answers to these long-standing systemic issues, and these are answers that that's being held by Black students, young Black men and young Black women, who can provide the answers to these problems that this country is currently facing. And I'm all for culture. I'm all for the bands and the games and the Black pride. But in this day and time, when people are looking for some sort of guidance, they're looking for when we're always asking the question, well, who is going to be the next to lead this generation? Or where do we go to find the answers to these problems? The HBCU has to be at the forefront as being that place, that source that's going to provide the answer.
Let me combine two things for you brilliant young brothers, two things that you both have said. I think the culture that we want to emphasize is the culture of leadership. SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, was founded on the campus of Shaw University in the 60s. SNCC was founded because Ella Baker, a person at that time would have been of my age, thought that it was important for students to maintain their own independence. HBCUs foster student leaders. No SNCC, no Civil Rights Act, no Voting Rights Act, no Obama. It's that simple. Now, let's look at where we are today. I came along at Morgan State University at a very critical time when Morgan was facing a lot of threats to its survival. And we were part of a student movement to activate our leadership to mobilize around support for our president and to press the state for its lack of funding over a 40-year period. We knew that our president had a 25-year building plan, a blueprint that had been blocked by the state of Maryland. That's where the seeds of the $577 million lawsuit were planted, because we took that challenge to the court of public opinion. 20 years later, Morgan received over $1.5 billion in capital improvements from the state, and then on top of that was successful in getting this lawsuit settled along with the other HBCUs. But where I acted, I passed the baton to Sinead. And as a student activist on Morgan, he very much followed in the footsteps that I walked in, and I walked in others' footsteps. So Morgan is a place known for student leadership and student development. Now, understand this: a Chinadu and a Travis are only possible in an environment that lets us be who we are. Again, no Shaw University, where I grew up on that campus, no Morgan, no me. So the reality is the culture we should be talking about is a culture of leadership. And if you use that as the paradigm, then brilliant students at Harvard, Yale, Towson, wherever they may be, brilliant Black students can come to a Morgan and feel safe in the exchange, free exchange of ideals and ideas without facing hostility. And you don't have to be a Black student. You can be a free thinker that desires a greater, freer society. And that's what makes HBCU special. You don't have to look over your shoulders to say what the truth is. You don't have to reimagine anything. You don't have to make anything up. You can completely be who you are. And HBCUs remove then the barrier to excellence by removing the barrier to access. You can access the programs of your choice, you can access your future, and you can develop your future by going to a school that reinforces you and accepts you for who you uniquely are. That's what we want for our students of any color at any university. HBCUs just happen to be very skilled at advancing the progress of the students that come through their doors.
So well said. Travis Mitchell, Senior Vice President for Maryland Public Television. Folks, we've been talking about HBCU Week, which is going to be celebrated starting on Monday, on September the 5th through September the 11th. 22 hours of fantastic premium content about HBCUs, not just to talk about the history, but discussing the ongoing legacy that HBCUs continue to make, even up to this present day. And so we invite you to check it out. You can go to their website to see it being streamed at mpt.org/HBCU, mpt.org/HBCU. Also, make sure y'all use the hashtag HBCU Week MD. Hashtag HBCU Week MD. Let your friends and family know about this, because even if you're in a state that doesn't have an HBCU, or you didn't go to an HBCU yourself, that does not mean that you can't benefit from this dynamic set of programs that will include films, one-on-one interviews, documentaries, and so much more. So make sure y'all check them out at mpt.org/HBCU. If you're in the DMV, you know you can just check out your local listing for MPT on your television. Travis, we got to bring you back, brother.
Thank you, man. I'm proud of you, brothers. I'm proud of you, brothers. Keep doing what you're doing.
We appreciate that. We appreciate that. Travis Mitchell checking in from MPT. Thank you, brother Travis. We appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Brother Shanadu, I thank you. I thank you, man, for taking time out your busy Friday afternoon schedule. Thank you, brother. You got plans for the long weekend, Shanadu?
Yes, just relaxation and a little bit of some revelry here with some libations. Well deserved. Put my labor to rest.
Right.
But I do want to say something real quick.
Go ahead, bro.
You, first of all, love your show and proud of your hair growth. I noticed.
Yeah. How about that? That's great.
But I think it's very interesting to what Travis said, and I just had to just get a quick little reverb for the folks who are in my age group. Like, it's 3 different generations of Black leadership, Black growth, Black excellence, Black mindset, you, me, and Travis. And it's so funny how we all literally are connected through that HBCU.
That is fact. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's how this works. And it doesn't stop at your local HBCU. It goes all around. Like, every time I hear stories about people, it goes all around. It is literally, the HBCU is our cookout. That's our meeting. That's our town square. And it's our town square, but everybody can come as well. It's very important to put that out there.
Hey, bro, I appreciate you putting that out there. And it just sparked a thought in me that's why we need to constantly demand that our HBCUs get not just the support, but they create a very high class, first class, state of the art educational experience. When we talk about HBCUs, you know the culture is like, well, if you Black, you shouldn't talk bad about HBCUs. It's not coming out of a space of hatred, but the HBCUs is that you want to see your HBCUs to provide high class, first class, and educational experience for Black students, because one, Black students deserve that, right? Not just because they're spending their money, but because of just simply who they are. They deserve to get high quality education. But then two, because of the fact that HBCUs represent so much of our brilliance and our excellence. And so we should always want those HBCUs to reflect that, to show the world that, yes, we can bring the cultural side, but then we can also bring the intellectual side, that we can bring some of the most dynamic minds in education, engineering, politics, arts and science and medicine, whatever, law, that we produce giants. And that's what it comes down to. And we give you top quality knowledge that can be used today to solve today's problems. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not just information and education just for 4 years from now, 10 years down the road. I'm saying you get out of school today, tomorrow you can start to solve the social justice issues and all of the other issues that we have. So that's something that comes to my mind too, bro, that we got to constantly demand that our HBCUs are always operating at its best. It breaks my heart to hear about what happened at FAMU. It breaks my heart to hear about some of the stories that I hear about HBCUs, because at the end of the day, bro, even if you did or you did not, we all benefited from HBCUs. You know what I'm saying? It breaks my heart, man, when Black folks just don't take, because of a one bad educational experience, it leaves this stain, or it leaves this bad taste in our mouths that, oh, HBCUs or Black schools or schools that are operated by Black people, it's not good. That's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking, bro.
It is, and I it's very important to say this, that our culture, our history, and our importance as in self is sacred. The statistics shows that HBCU admissions started to go up drastically after the summer of 2020, and we all know what happened there. We cannot continue to be reactionary to our own culture. We can't wait for it to become popular, because it's going to always be there for us. But we can honor it beforehand. We can honor it early. You know, don't wait for Beyonce to do Homecoming for you to understand that culture of HBCU made her put on the production. It's not the other way around.
Right.
So it's important that we honor it, because it's not a fad or a phase. It's going to be forever lasting. And it's very, very important that we continue to talk about it, because the HBCU is not going anywhere, and it has so much further to go with you and I.
Absolutely. My brother Shinedu, a core for diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist. Always happy to have him on the show. A dynamic voice who adds so much to these conversations. Shinedu, I hope and pray you have a safe weekend, brother. But God willing, we'll reconnect with you next week.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. All right, folks. That's going to do it for us on this side. It is Friday. It's a long weekend. So that means that on Monday, we will not have a live show, but definitely still tune in if you missed some past shows of the culture here on the Black Star Network. But on Tuesday, God willing, we'll be back with a live show. And, Tuesday we have Iman and Lise. And, we'll start to start to integrate some new voices, God willing, next week. So just make sure that you mark it on your calendar. Monday, we're going to take a break just because of the holiday. But Tuesday, we'll be back live. But that does not mean that you need to stop your support. Your support should continue to run through. As you're talking to your family and friends, you're spending time at the cookouts and all of those things that you got, make sure you let your family and friends know that, hey, look, I tune into Black Star Network to get my news and information. They always talking about something. I check out the culture. I check out the pivot. I check out a balanced life, man. Just, I'm learning about how I can bring some balance to my life. I'm learning about how I can do some things better, make some big decisions. You know what I mean? Or I'm always tuned into RMU because they talk about they have the conversations and talk about the things that you won't see in any other media space. So that's why we want you to continue to support us here at Black Star Network. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Support us financially. Continue to share the content that we put out. Big shout out to Keenan and to the production crew, the control room here, because they continue to work even when we aren't working. They make sure that the streams continue to happen. I see the culture streaming. I might be up at night and I get a notification like 1 a.m, culture streaming live, and people are tuning in. And I'm like, yo, that's what's good right there. So Keenan got the system working. So big shout out to Keenan. Big shout out to my production crew, to Joel and Shannon, to Ariel, to all of my culture crew members that have come on this week, and to our very, very special guests. Big shout out to the control room. Thank you for making the show so good and to keep the quality up. So thank you. And of course, big shout out to each and every one of you who join us on our online culture crew. Make sure y'all follow me on social media at The Real Farajii. You can follow me. You see right there on IG. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I would love to connect with you. And guess what? I follow back. I actually follow back, folks. I see you. I see so many of you. Y'all like, what? Yep, I actually follow back. So make sure y'all check me out on all social media platforms. All right, that's going to do it for me. I thank each and every one of you. Stay tuned at the 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. But as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk on Tuesday for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Have a great, safe weekend, family. And we will look forward to reconnecting on Tuesday here on Black Star Network. Peace.